Okay, let's picture this. We're in a quiet little German village way back in 1844. A kid is born who's going to grow up to write sentences that literally explode like bombs under the foundations of Western thought. I mean, just completely shake everything up. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and his story, wow. It's not just about philosophy. It's a trip into the highest highs and, well, the lowest lows of the human mind. So yeah, let's dive right in.
Yeah, this one. God is dead. It's a statement that, even today, kind of feels dangerous to say out loud, right? Just 3 little words, and they basically took a sledgehammer to 2,000 years of Western belief. This is, without a doubt, Nietzsche's most famous and, honestly, most misunderstood idea.
So you have to ask yourself, who was this guy? What kind of person comes out with something like that? Well, to really get the philosophy, you've got to understand the man first. And his life, it was basically a constant battleground. A war between faith and doubt, crippling loneliness, and this just explosive, unstoppable need to create.
You know, Nietzsche's story starts with this incredible irony. It's just perfect. He wasn't born some rebel, not at all. He was born in a parsonage, the son of a well-loved Lutheran pastor. I mean, he was soaked in the very faith he would one day try to tear down. But that whole world of quiet, religious devotion, it was about to get completely shattered.
So get this. When Nietzsche was only 4 years old, his father died. Just a year later, his little brother was gone too. Can you even imagine that as a little kid? These weren't just sad events. These brutal losses shaped everything for him. It forced him to just stare into the void and ask, okay, in a world with this much pain, where is the loving God everyone keeps telling me about? Right there, you see it. Suffering and being alone. That became the raw material for his entire life's work.
And all that early questioning, it sharpened his mind into something, well, razor sharp. For Nietzsche, school wasn't about just, memorizing facts. No way. It was about forging weapons. He was building an arsenal of intellectual tools he could use to basically dismantle the world as he saw it, and then try to build something brand new from the wreckage.
And you can really see how this all unfolded on this timeline here. He goes to this super elite school, Forta, and just gets obsessed with the ancient Greeks. Their tragic heroes, the way they looked at life's ugliness and beauty all at once. Then, boom, at university, he discovers Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, Schopenhauer was a philosopher who basically said life is just this blind, chaotic, meaningless force. And for Nietzsche, reading that was like getting hit by lightning. But it wasn't depressing for him. It was freeing. It was like, finally, someone is describing the world the way I've actually felt.
Okay, now this is super important. This is where he takes those Greek ideas and really makes them his own. In his very first book, he comes up with this amazing concept. Think of it like 2 competing forces. On one side, you've got Apollo. That's all about order, logic, harmony, kind of the neat and tidy dream of civilization. But on the other side, you have Dionysus. And that's chaos, passion, wild ecstasy, the raw, primal, and kind of scary energy of nature. And here's the genius part. Nietzsche says a healthy person or a healthy society doesn't pick one. You need both. True greatness is born right there, in the tension, in that clash between the two.
So get this, by the time he's 24, Nietzsche is already a full professor. I mean, a total prodigy. But he was like a firework stuck inside a library. He just couldn't be contained by all those stuffy academic debates. He was looking out at the world around him, at this Europe that was just exploding with industry and new science, and he saw something deeply, deeply wrong, a kind of spiritual sickness.
You really have to try and picture the world he was living in. Science and industry were just like a bulldozer plowing over centuries of tradition. You've got Darwin's theories coming out, suggesting maybe humans aren't some divine creation, maybe we're just another animal. People are flooding into big cities, feeling more alone than ever. All the old rule books, the maps for how to live a good life, all those religious certainties, they were just turned into dust.
And this is the context you need for that famous phrase. When Nietzsche said, God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He wasn't popping champagne. He was screaming fire. He was sounding an alarm. See, for him, God wasn't just some guy in the sky. God was the entire moral backbone, the shared story that had held the West together for centuries. And he was saying that we, with our science, with our skepticism, were the ones who killed it.
Just read the full quote here. I mean, really listen to the words. You can feel the anguish in it, can't you? This isn't a victory cry. It's a terrified whisper. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? Think about what he's asking. It's a terrifying question.
If the ultimate source of meaning and value is just gone, then what's to stop everything from falling apart? What stops us from just spiraling into total meaninglessness? For Nietzsche, this was the #1 crisis of the modern world.
But here's the thing about Nietzsche. He never just sits around in despair. Nope. He points out the massive problem only so he can propose a solution. And his thinking went something like this. If we, humanity, are the ones who killed God, then it's up to us now to take on the massive responsibility of creating our own meaning. And this led him to his most radical and, in a way, his most hopeful idea of all, the Übermensch, or what we call the Overman.
Okay, let's be super clear on this, because this idea gets twisted more than any other. The Übermensch is not some kind of master race. It has nothing to do with that. It's an ideal for the individual. It's a personal journey. Look at the steps. Step 1, you got to reject what he called herd morality. You know, all the ready-made, off-the-shelf values that society just hands to you. Step 2, you have to declare war on your own weaknesses, your own fears. And then step 3, you become the artist of your own life. You forge your own values, you create your own meaning. It's basically the ultimate expression of human freedom.
But, and this is a big but, this philosophy of heroic individualism, it came at a huge personal cost. The very man who was writing for a future humanity found himself completely, utterly alone in his own time. The higher his ideas flew, the more his connection to the real world just frayed. And then finally, it just snapped.
I mean, one by one, the doors just slammed shut. He had a massive falling out with his old hero, the composer Richard Wagner, because he was disgusted by Wagner's growing nationalism and anti-Semitism. Then he gets his heart absolutely crushed by the brilliant Luce Salome, a woman he saw as his true intellectual equal. And on top of all of that, his own body was betraying him. His health was awful, pushing him deeper and deeper into a lonely, wandering life.
And then came the final, tragic break. It was in Turin, 1889. He saw a man in the street just brutally whipping a horse. And Nietzsche, the philosopher who wrote about the will to power, ran over to the suffering animal, threw his arms around its neck as if to protect it, and then just collapsed, sobbing, completely broken.
And that was it. That was the end. The most brilliant, most challenging mind in all of Europe just went silent. For the last 10 years of his life, he was just an empty shell, cared for by his family, totally unaware of the world, and completely oblivious to the hurricane his ideas were about to unleash on the next century.
You know, Nietzsche's first tragedy was his collapse, but his second tragedy was what happened next. With him unable to speak for himself, his sister, Elizabeth, got control of all his unpublished writings, his entire legacy, and she immediately started to twist and warp his philosophy to make it fit her own hateful, nationalistic agenda. And this table here just lays out the sickening distortion perfectly. Look at the Übermensch. For Nietzsche, it was a call for the individual to overcome themselves spiritually and intellectually. The Nazis twisted that into a racist justification for a biological master race. Then you have the will to power. For Nietzsche, that was the internal drive to grow and improve yourself. They warped that into a crude excuse for conquering other nations. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate hijacking, and it was all made possible because his sister was literally faking parts of his work and was a huge fan of anti-Semitism. But thankfully, the story doesn't end there. It took decades, but scholars eventually cleaned all that Nazi filth off of his work and showed the world the real Nietzsche. And his actual influence? Oh, it's everywhere. You really can't understand modern psychology, think Freud, think Jung, without him. Whole philosophical movements like existentialism and postmodernism, they're basically built on his ideas. And all those big questions he asked about truth, about power, about morality, about how to live a meaningful life, they aren't just old philosophical problems. They are the questions of our time.
So in the end, Nietzsche doesn't give you any easy, comfortable answers. He doesn't pat you on the back. What he does is give you a challenge, a terrifying and at the same time totally exhilarating one. It's like he's looking right at us right now from across the century and he's saying, hey, the old rule books are gone. The old gods are dead. You are free. The real question is, what are you going to do with that freedom? Can you be brave enough, creative enough to be the artist of your own life? His ultimate question? Well, it's all yours now.